Since Lily was born, things have changed a lot. Before, when I entered a room, Mark used to look happy to see me. Now I'm lucky if he even grunts before burying his face in his phone. His job hasn't changed much, maybe even less stressful than before, but something in him turned off the day we brought her home. Mark used to like my paintings, but now he criticizes them. He used to admire my work, even had my best piece framed in his office once. Not anymore. When he sees me setting up my easel, his voice gets sharp and angry. He complains about the mess in the house, blaming me for not managing everything. Every night, he leaves for work without a word, ignoring me completely. Lily notices, asking if Daddy is angry. I try to reassure her, but it's hard when Mark doesn't appreciate what I do. I keep trying to make things better, cooking dinner, keeping the house clean, and taking care of Lily. But Mark just sees my painting as a waste of time and money. He doesn't understand that it's important to me. I try to stand up for myself, telling him that raising our daughter and painting are meaningful to me. But he doesn't listen, only seeing it as a mess he'll have to clean up later. His unkind words hurt, but I'm getting used to it. But my dreams and passions didn't have a place in Mark's world anymore. "Dinner's ready," I called out, feeling like I was putting on a show. My hands trembled as I served the meal. But Mark's parents, sitting like judges at the head of the table, barely noticed my efforts to create a warm, hearty meal. Their attention was on the easel by the window. "What's this then?" Mark's dad, George, a big man with a booming voice, pointed at my unfinished painting. "Oh, that's just something Grace has been messing around with." Mark chuckled, dismissively waving his hand before sitting down. "Real high-class stuff, right?" Laughter filled the room, but it didn't reach their eyes. My, we're an artist now, are we?" Mark's mom, Patricia, chimed in, her voice sharp. "Why don't you show us your latest masterpiece, dear?" George's smile seemed more like a challenge than genuine interest. "It's not done yet," I muttered, but Mark was already walking over to the canvas, grabbing it with less care than he'd handle a dish towel. "Look at this, folks," Mark laughed, flipping the canvas around like he was revealing a letter on Wheel of Fortune. "It's supposed to be a landscape, can you believe it?" George's laughter erupted again. "Looks like a blind dog's nightmare," he joked, while Patricia shook her head disapprovingly, her nostrils flaring with each breath. "Why waste your time with this hobby? Get a job or do something, anything productive," Patricia said, as if no place would hire me. Mark snorted, setting the painting back with a thud that made my heart sink. "The job market's tough out there, and well, look at her." I felt the lump in my throat, my hands tightening into fists at my sides. "I do plenty. I take care of Lily and this house," I tried to say, but my words faltered under their collective stare. Patricia prodded at the food with her fork as if she suspected it was poisoned. "Taking care of your family is the least you can do," she sniffed. "But honestly, Mark, if you'd married someone with a little ambition." They went on, tearing strips off me with every word, while I just stood there. The room closed in, their words pressing on my chest, squeezing the air from my lungs. I felt myself slipping away, becoming smaller, insignificant in this grand performance of theirs. Something in me snapped as soon as the meal ended. With a fake tone, I excused myself and marched up the stairs, not looking back, locking myself in the bedroom. Mark's voice climbed up the stairs, maybe half an hour later, cracking through the door. "You coming back down? We need to clear the table." I didn't respond. I couldn't. If I opened my mouth, a scream or a sob would have escaped, and I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of hearing my breakdown. I scrolled through my bank app, a frown etching deeper lines on my face. Our account was looking dire again this month, and the grocery list wasn't getting any shorter. Lily needed new shoes, too. Mark's voice tumbled in from the living room. "Grace, why is there a charge for $48.95 for Martin's art supplies?" "Just picked up a few things," I said, tapping through the app to transfer what remained of my personal savings to cover it. "I needed them," I said, my voice pleading. "Come on, Mark, that's money we could have put towards something important, isn't it?" His voice was flat, bored even, with a hint of something else. Was it disappointment? Frustration? Art is important to me, Mark, the same way your golf is important to you, I replied, holding back the fact that his golf clubs cost more than a year's worth of my supplies. Yeah, but golf is networking. It's part of my job. What does your painting get us? A cluttered house and wasted cash, he grumbled. It gets me through the day, I murmured, feeling that old familiar tug of war in my chest. Through the day? We have to be smart about money, not just spend it on whatever gets us through the day. Budget, Grace. Budget, he said, and the word felt like a choke chain. I pay for my art supplies with my own money, Mark, the money I had before. I trailed off, not wanting another fight. My before was a long-gone chapter, one that contained a job, independence, and a once-shared dream of my own gallery. Your money's our money, isn't it? He shot back, the insinuation that my financial independence was history clear in his tone. And that your money is running out fast. What then? Later at the store, I chose the cheaper brands, counting every cent, every compromise, locking eyes with the rest of the shelves. I bought the smallest tubes of paint, the ones I could slip into the cart without raising eyebrows. Back home, I unpacked the bags with robotic precision, every item a testament to our tightrope walk above financial ruin. Putting back some luxuries, are we? Mark commented, his gaze landing on the no-name cereal and store-brand pasta. Yes, tightening the belt, I answered without looking at him, hiding the receipts like a paper trail of my crimes. He hummed, rummaging through the bags like an investigator looking for a slip-up. Where are the Greek yogurts you like? And isn't this the cheap coffee? He asked. I shrugged, busying myself with placing a can of tomatoes in the pantry. Prices went up, had to make some cuts, I explained. Don't see any cuts in your art budget though, he said, a cold finger pointing out the new brushes I'd slipped under a loaf of bread. I turned to him, meeting his eyes for the first time since the conversation began. This keeps me sane, Mark. My art keeps me sane, I said firmly, clenching my fist around the countertop to stop the shake in my hand. Well, sanity's quite the luxury item these days, eh? He nodded towards the brushes, his words deliberate, biting. That night, I painted not out of passion but frustration. Each stroke was a challenge, a cut from our personal budget to fit it within the constraints of Mark's expectations. But as I worked, I remembered a time when these brushes were a joy to hold, not a weapon I had to defend. Mark was somewhere across the country, tangled up in business trip meetings, when he decided to drop the latest task on me. His voice buzzed through my phone, sounding like he was already out the door before he even finished his sentence. Grace, you've got to pull together a birthday present for my boss's wife, Clara. Her big day's in a week. Okay, do you have any cash set aside for that? I asked, squinting at our already tight budget on my laptop screen. Nah, you figure it out. Just make it look like we put some thought into it, he muttered, sounding distracted. Hang on, you want something nice. But I'm supposed to magic up the funds for it. I muttered to myself, feeling the heat rising in my cheeks. You always find a way to make it happen, Grace, Mark had said with that cheery little line, and then he was gone. I let out a long, slow breath, closing my eyes and trying to push back the frustration gnawing at my last nerve. I didn't have the cash, but I needed something that would knock Clara's socks off. No pressure, right? After a deep dive into Clara's online world, it was clear she had a thing for art. Her feed was full of gallery visits, pictures of canvases that probably cost more than our car. She even had photos with artists, talked about supporting the arts, patronage, and all that jazz. An idea sparked, and I grabbed it before it could blaze out of my mind. A painting for me. I had the paints, I had the canvas, and I sure as hell had the motive. I give Clara something no one else could, not off some high street. I spun the idea in my mind, letting it settle. I could picture the brush strokes already, feel the drag of bristles against canvas. It would be personal, and it'd be free. Bonus, a painting. Then decision made. I was going to need every minute of every day if it was going to look anything like the kind of stuff Clara posted. I pulled out my old easel, set it up in the living room, and got to work, all the while fingers crossed that my little slice of creativity would cut it in the high-stakes world of business birthday gifts. Day 1, postmark bombshell. I'm standing in the middle of my makeshift studio, a corner of the dining room I've cleared out, pushing the table against the wall. The morning light streams in, kind of highlighting the chaos of my art supplies spread all over. Mommy, what's all this? Lily, my 6-year-old, parks herself right in the middle of the chaos, her eyes as round as the splattered paint drops on the floor. Mommy's got to make a birthday present, baby, I reply, rifling through old brushes with bristles stiffer than my back feels. For a lady Daddy works with. I explain, snatching the brush from her before it becomes a makeshift sword or fairy wand. Lily's forehead scrunches up in confusion. But why can't Daddy buy something? Lily asked, her voice innocent. Lily, go watch your cartoons, will you? I need to think, I replied. I wasn't in the mood to unpack the complexities of our bank account or my marriage to a kindergartner. Grumbling something under her breath, sounding too much like me for comfort, she trotted off to the living room, leaving me to my quandary. The week grinded by. I was pulling double shifts, daytime mommy, nighttime Picasso. The canvas started to fiddle, taking on a life of its own, something abstract, something that felt kind of like the whirlwind that's my life lately. I didn't hear a peep from Mark, no check-in calls, not even a text asking how it's going. I guess he was too wrapped up in his charts and deals, and whenever he does that's too important to ring his wife. Lily, on the other hand, was my tiny shadow, always creeping back to watch me paint. You're really good, Mommy, she said on. Like, what date for? You should draw stuff more. I smiled because that's probably the best review I'll ever get. Think so, huh? Maybe I will. The night before the big reveal, the painting's finally staring back at me done. It's not just art. It's everything I haven't been able to say or do, all poured out onto canvas. I couldn't sleep that night, tossing and turning, thoughts swirling in my head. What if Clara hates it? What if Mark thinks I've wasted my time? What if? But the morning comes clear and bright. The painting's wrapped up, no fancy paper, just brown parcel stuff, but neat, with a nice bow from Lily's hair ribbons because why not? So there I was at the boss's wife's birthday bash, my arms wrapped tight around a package, the painting I hoped would be a hit. I slid through the crowd, eyes low, wishing I could blend into the wallpaper. Mark was there too, just flown in hot from his latest trip, looking every inch the man who had it all, except the picture-perfect trophy wife. His eyes swept over the women, polished and perfect in their cocktail dresses, then landed on me like a ton of bricks. I saw that look on his face, like he just bit into a lemon. He looked me up and down and shook his head, just enough so only I'd notice. The room faded a bit, like someone turned down the volume on the party, and all I could hear was my heartbeat in my ears. Then his gaze zeroed in on the parcel, all wrapped up and nestled in my shaky grip. His eyes flashed, and oh boy, I knew that look. I saw the storm brewing before the first word even shot out. What's that? He spat, barely keeping a lid on it. I pulled the package closer, as if I could shield it and me from what was coming. It's a gift, my painting. The words barely had a chance to hang in the air. A painting. You're kidding, right? Mark's voice boomed, loud enough to catch a few glances our way. I tried to shush him with my eyes, but he was past caring. You actually think this is okay? To hand her a piece of amateur hour? The whispers around us started, like the start of rain, soft but getting stronger. Mark, please, not here, I begged, my cheeks flaming up fiercely. Did you lose your mind? He roared, and the room didn't just pause, it froze. You make us look like fools. By now, we were the main event. Eyes flicked to us, then away, then back again, like they were watching tennis. I shrank, wishing I could melt right into the floorboards. His face was a shade of red I'd only ever seen on traffic lights. Great, just great grace. He vented, throwing his hands up. You don't think, do you? The heat in my face told me I was blushing, and not in a cute way. My hand shook, but I hugged the painting tighter because what else was there to hang on to? I took a breath, tried to remember why I thought this was a good idea. Now everyone's going to have a go at us, thanks to you and your dumb idea, he added, sharp as a knife. My mouth opened, words ready to tumble out to defend, or maybe just to tell him to put a sock in it. But what was there to say with the whole room's eyes burning holes into us? Instead, I just stood there, the fool he called me, wishing the ground would do me a favor and swallow me whole. The laughter after Mark's outburst felt like daggers. Even with the room spinning, I caught the boss's eye. He was just watching, all quiet, with something like confusion on his face. And his wife, Clara, she had this half-concerned, half-intrigued frown that actually gave me a sliver of hope. Clara waved a hand, cutting through the noise. Quiet down, everyone. Let's see what Grace has brought. I moved on autopilot, my hands still a bit jittery as they tore the paper from the canvas. The art spilled out into the room, all the colors and shapes I'd spent nights pouring myself into. Clara's eyebrows shot up. Oh my, she said, and the room hushed, like they were waiting for her to drop the hammer. But then she continued, this is quite something, Grace. Mark was still fuming by my side. Yeah, it's something all right, he muttered. I ignored him and searched Clara's face for some sign. It's for you, I mumbled. Happy birthday. She tilted her head, studying the painting like it was a puzzle. It's bold. I like bold, don't you, darling? She said, nudging her husband. The boss was a tough guy to read, but he nodded. Don't see something like that every day, he remarked. Mark tried to jump back in. Oh, come on, you're saying you like this mess. And there it was, the snap in Clara's voice as she turned to him with a squint. Mark, I'd watch it if I were you. Your wife has talent, and I won't have you embarrass her any further. It's unbecoming. The room fell into this tense kind of quiet, the kind where you could hear someone sneeze 3 houses down. Look at the colors, the feeling in it, Clara was saying. Now it's got life. Mark tried for a save. Well, sure, if you like that sort of thing. But Clara cut him off. I do. It's decided. This goes right in the foyer. I blinked. Was this actually happening? You sure, babe? The boss chimed in. It's not exactly. Clara shot him a look, and he trailed off. Standard, right? It's unique, he corrected himself. Her arm shot out to me. A beacon in the high heels and overpriced suit. See? Thank you, Grace. This here's a real gift, folks. It's got soul. And just like that, the murmur started up again. But they had a different tune. People were nodding, some even looking at me with what felt like respect. Clara, still holding my painting like it was a treasure, turned her eyes on me again. So Grace, she said, drawing the room's focus. Ever thought about showing your work, like in a gallery? Mark let out a scoff. I heard it, but my eyes were glued to Clara. Nah, who'd want to see my stuff? I said, don't worry, Grace. I would. And I know people. Clara said firmly, her eyes sharp. Mark tried to laugh it off. Come on, Clara. She's just dabbling. Clara quirked an eyebrow at him. So she dabbles better than some pros I know. What's it to you? I swallowed, feeling like I was teetering on the edge of something big. I don't know. I've never. What's to know? You jump in and I'll help right. Clara's look said she wasn't asking, she was telling. A giggle slipped from me, nervous, a bit wild-sounding even to my own ears. Sure, right? Clara beamed. Good, it's settled then. After that, whispers flitted around like moths to a flame. People who barely gave me the time of day were now hanging on my arm, talking about my work. It felt surreal, like walking through someone else's life. Mark was suddenly there again, his hand on my back almost scalding. You're not serious about this, are you? There was that edge in his voice, like a knife threatening to cut. I turned to him, feeling the weight of the crowd, the pull of something new. Yeah, I am, I said, my voice stronger than it had felt in years. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time that night. But what about us? What about us, Mark? I repeated. We've been over for a longer time than I want to admit. That shook him. He stepped back. I thought we were fine. I turned to face him fully. You thought wrong, I said. The words colder than I intended, but they needed to be said. Mark ran a hand through his hair, looking beaten. So what? We just end it. I looked down at the colors splashed across the nails on my fingers, at the rings that didn't mean what they were supposed to anymore. We ended it a long time ago. Now, we're just making it official. He didn't have anything to say to that. I watched him walk away, his shoulders hunched. Clara's hand touched my shoulder. You okay, hon? I nodded. I am. Thanks to you, I said, feeling my heart start to hammer for a whole new set of reasons. Ahead of me, there wasn't just an ending. There was a beginning, and it was painted in the boldest colors I could imagine. Lily and I, we'd be more than fine. We'd be us, unapologetically, unfalteringly us.